Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew, Keith Johnson.
So I wonder, does it ever not rain on Ferenginar?
Veronica Dashel.
Hi.
And joining us as a special guest tonight, we're joined by Navya, a.k.a. That Girl Avon on TikTok and Instagram. Welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Now,
And before anybody asks, no, she's not named after the Marlo Thomas series because she doesn't know what I was talking about.
don't worry, Keith asked about that before we got
Yeah.
Now we have to watch it. I'll report back to you.
Okay, awesome.
Now, Navya, you and Veronica met on TikTok. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're
she was-
famous TikTokers.
She was actually the first person I reached out to on TikTok. I was like, hey, so how do you edit your videos? Because I knew like nothing about TikTok.
Awesome. And we already have a comment in the comment section. Hello, commenter. And the comment is UFO United Federation of Planet 1701 says, how's it going? I saw the UFO first, and then
Yeah,
I
that's
realized
Me too.
it was the United Federation of Planets.
Me too.
And then Wayne, our buddy Tiger Blade 2002, is in the comments and says, hey,
2002.
welcome, Wayne. Welcome to the show, folks.
What's up, Wayne?
Yay.
Now go ahead with what you girls were saying.
Oh, yeah, that was about it.
Okay.
She
Yeah,
was
that
the
was
first
it.
person I reached out to.
Okay.
So one of the first people I started following on TikTok.
And Navya, I assume that you're a Star Trek fan,
Yes. Yeah, apparently.
or else you're in for a rough hour.
No, right?
Well, what got you into Star Trek?
It was LeVar Burton. I was a big Reading Rainbow fan. And then as I got
Wow.
older, I was just like flipping through channels. I was like, that weird guy with the glasses looks super familiar. And I was like, oh my God, it's the Reading Rainbow guy. And then I had to watch it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've told this story on our podcast before, but when I was in the first grade, I was a fan of both Reading Rainbow and Star Trek: The Next Generation, which had just started. And they did a Reading Rainbow special where he went behind the scenes
Wow.
of The Next Generation. And I was 6 years old or something. And so everyone in the class was trying to figure out who, because he mentioned he played someone on Star Trek. And we were trying to figure out who he was. And like it was a mystery because we were 6. And then it was like a big reveal when he put his visor on and we're like, oh, it was like Clark Kent with the glasses, you know.
Crazy.
And
Well-
watching it now, it's pretty apparent. Even if,
Yeah.
but for a group of 6-year-olds, it was a big deal.
Thrill.
Well, here we
Really?
go again. It's funny because my first exposure to LeVar Burton was as Kunta Kinte
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
in the miniseries Roots. And what's kind of ironic now, of course, then I don't think I've even watched 5 minutes of Reading Rainbow. I'm a little bit past that age,
Right.
but what I think is,
Because you were in your 20s when it was on.
yeah,
It's normal that you weren't watching.
yeah, it'd be a little weird if I was watching that in Teletubbies when I was an adult, but
Right.
well, Teletubbies, I don't know. That's a good-
Teletubbies was even after our time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's so funny when you look back on it is when TNG first started, LeVar Burton was the star in that cast.
Oh, wow.
And the others were nervous. Even Patrick Stewart was nervous because if you think about who was in that cast, they're all household names to us now, but
Mhm.
none of them was what you would call just a super well-known actor at that time. LeVar
Wow.
Burton was the most consistently famous. Worf was the dude on Chips, primarily.
Oh,
Uh,
But unrecognizable as
Yeah.
Worf.
Yeah, absolutely. Denise Crosby was Bing Crosby's niece. I don't even know if she'd done 48 Hours yet.
Okay.
Marina Sirtis, people had seen her in certain things. Gates McFadden, she'd been involved with Labyrinth and some other stuff. But if you think about that first cast, nobody was really, really famous but LeVar Burton. So he was the guy.
Yeah, he didn't have top billing, but I think he was certainly
Yeah.
had the most exposure here in the U.S., mostly to folks like me who was 6 years old at the time. You know? But I mean, to adults as well, because like as you said, he was in Roots and he was on
Yeah.
besides that.
Mhm.
So Navya, what is your favorite Star Trek series? If you had to pick one.
DS9, hands down.
Yes.
It's the best.
Oh, awesome.
Yay.
Awesome. That's great.
It's really funny because when I was watching Star Trek for the first time, like I read it and everything was already available, and everyone was like trashing DS9. So it was the very last Star Trek of the original. So I watched because I was so scared. And then I watched, I was like, what are people talking about? This is the best thing ever. I was shocked.
Right.
Chuck will tell you it took him forever to get me into DS9, and he refused to start Voyager or Enterprise
Yeah.
before I loved DS9 because he was afraid I was going to like them better.
Yeah, well, they're both Voyager and Enterprise, I would say, are about what they are from the beginning.
Mhm.
You know,
Uh-huh.
whereas DS9, it takes a while for it to really show its potential. You know, I mean, it's hard to say to someone, "Oh, just watch about 60 episodes of this show, and then you're really going to start liking it." You know, that's a big commitment. But yeah, I was afraid that we're married and we live together. And if you all of a sudden were running around the house saying Enterprise was better than DS9, I don't know.
I was too busy playing Civ 5 to know what was going on, so he just played in the background while I played Civ 5, and now it's my favorite, and I'm on a Star Trek podcast. Go bigger.
And it's gotten to the point now where if I try to play something else when we're going to sleep, she'll make me turn on DS9. It's our go-to show for bedtime.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, I remember when DS9 came out, and to your point, Navya, the point was I remember everybody literally saying, and after a while, people thought they were clever, and it was no longer clever. It doesn't go anywhere. And that was the thing. It was the whole thing because it was a space station. They really took that so-called wagon train to the stars for the original series way too literally. And that was the thing that killed it. And we talked about this before. It really wasn't great the first season or two, as in it wasn't different enough from TNG. But as Charles was saying, it found its legs, especially when what happened basically, as we know, the showrunners Berman and Braga were busy elsewhere. And boy, oh boy, the folks left behind turned that show into something completely different.
What they left behind.
Exactly.
Good one.
All right, I want to grab a couple of comments real quick. Wayne, and this was in response with Keith when you were saying that you recognize LeVar Burton as Kunta Kinte. Wayne said, "Same here, Keith. Did we date ourselves?"
I still haven't watched Roots. I think I like seen parts of it, but I still have not actually watched.
Well, then we need to.
Well, Wayne, you're going to find out one day that I'm actually Flint, because the man can have all kinds of forms. So nobody will guess my age. I'll stop talking.
And then UFOP 1701 says TNG will always be my favorite, but it's because that's the first I watched.
That's the first I watched.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
So TNG is the first you watched?
Yeah, it was the first I watched. Yeah.
Okay.
It was the only one I had seen prior to Chuck.
Now, Navya, when you were watching it, were you watching it just on television? Were you seeking it out on streaming?
No, I was watching it way before like TiVo and DVR. So it was like on the Spike channel. That's where I was watching on Spike. It was the weirdest thing.
Now, was that with Spike used to do that thing where there was like comments during the show and like pop-ups, and remember they used to do scroll and
I remember that.
People can talk about the show.
A little bit before.
Okay. So you got to, it was actually the whole screen was Star Trek, not a window on the screen. I don't know what they were doing.
So have you ever gone backwards to watch the original series or even the animated series?
I've tried watching the original series, but I just can't get into it. I know people are gonna hate me for it, but I just can't. I've seen like the important episodes, but I haven't watched like a full watch of the whole series.
Awesome.
That's fine.
I know you've been keeping up with new series though.
Yes, yeah.
Well, what's your favorite of the new shows?
Discovery, because it started the Renaissance. Like we have to love Discovery for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't do news this week, but they've just recently announced the premiere date for Star Trek Discovery will be April the 4th, and it will be a double episode premiere.
Yeah,
so, almost a birthday present to me.
Yep. We're going to the Zombies concert on the 3rd, Star Trek on the 4th, and then Veronica's birthday is on First Contact Day, the 5th.
Oh wow!
So we have a big week.
Is that Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday?
That's a Thursday.
That's a Thursday.
That's a good week.
So we're gonna have to figure out if we're gonna be able to watch 2 episodes before our podcast or not. So details pending on our recording. But yeah, we'll have 2 episodes of Star Trek Discovery in just about a month and a half.
I wonder why they're doing that. It kind of annoys me because I want it to like last as long as possible.
I think it's because they're debuting those 2 episodes at South by Southwest prior to that. So probably they're going to go ahead and put them out to cut down on the spoilers. Yeah.
Because people are terrible.
That's true.
Oh, God.
There will always be somebody with firstitis who's trying to get likes or whatever. All right, a couple more comments. Wayne says, I have no favorite Star Trek. And UFOP 1701 says, I'm the exact same. I've never been able to get into it. I think that was in reference to the original series.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay.
Sorry.
But yeah, we actually have a topic discussion. And Navya, you suggested this topic. So did you want to introduce it?
No, go for it. You guys can go ahead and introduce it.
So what we're talking about is what would it be like living on the planets in Star Trek? And that could be either as a native and indigenous character to that planet, or it could be as a human who's traveled to a planet, or I guess as an alien traveling to whatever combination strikes anyone's fancy. So if you have any ideas about that, feel free to throw them in the comments, and we'll go ahead and get started. Who had a planet that they would like to talk about and how life might be like on that planet?
I'm a huge Vulcan fan, so I want to start with Vulcan.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, we never would guess. What's that on the wall behind you?
I think Vulcan has one of the craziest environment because they have like lava like going through Vulcan in some parts. They have like green like forests in Vulcan and like deserts. It literally Vulcan has everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's very Earth-like in that way.
Yeah.
Except for the lava part.
Now, have you read anything about what is the kind of the prehistory of Vulcan? There's a book called Spock's World that talks about that. Have you ever read that?
No.
Well, one of the interesting things about Vulcan, to your point about the deserts and stuff, is Vulcan was evidently a lush planet, a tropical planet.
Wow.
And millions of years in their past, the book opens with almost like if you've ever seen 2001 with like early ape type people that are Vulcans. And they even talk about a thing called this one male hominid is going through what they call the rapture or the passion. And when you look at what they're describing, it's the Vulcan mating ritual, which evidently has been in their species for millions of years. But it's this lush planet, and their sun has a solar flare. And the solar flare hits Vulcan. And that's why Vulcan is decimated like that with the desert. And it killed a lot of the life. But the Vulcans were tough enough to continue living. That's why it's a desert planet more than, and it also burned off a lot of the atmosphere.
Okay.
Oh, I did not know that. Wow.
Navya, when thinking about Vulcan, what was your ideas about what would we like to live on that planet?
Boy.
I don't know if I'd want to live on Vulcan. Just like, I love Vulcans, but I think the Vulcans would put me in a mental institution because I'd be like, this girl is too unstable.
Right. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
I feel like they'd do that with any human, but
yeah. They thought T'Lyn was too unstable, so we got no chance.
No.
Yeah. I like how in the new Star Trek they've shown a little more of the diversity of the biosphere on Vulcan.
Yeah.
Because you get scenes where they're next to a large lake or body of water, and you get scenes where it's raining, because surely that would happen. It's not just a red sky or just Vasquez rocks. You know, it's the planet has some diversity to it. And yeah, I know that in Amok Time, when they were on Vulcan, the air was very thin. Kirk had a hard time breathing.
Right.
And Vulcans, they said it in I guess in Operation Annihilate, that Vulcans had developed an extra inner eyelid that, for the protect against the bright light in Vulcan, So I imagine if you're a human being, you're gonna have a terrible time. Like Amanda Grayson is probably having a terrible time living on Vulcan.
Yeah, she's like hardcore, like just like they described in that Strange New Worlds episode, like burning her hands on that pot. That's basically her entire life. Is her brain and senses are just constantly burning. So she has more control than any Vulcan out.
Yeah. Navya, you raise a really good point. And I've always thought about this. If you're in Starfleet or even just the Federation, I wonder if they sometimes match people psychologically to the planet they want to assign them. Because someone on Earth that we might call emotionally distant, perhaps even borderline sociopathic, might be okay on Vulcan because they show emotions. And I've always wondered, like, you wouldn't necessarily take a really, really meek person and make them an ambassador to Kronos. And and I wonder what kind of people are sent to Vulcan, because to your point about Discovery, look at Michael Burnham the first year or two, and the way she was so repressed, and she acted almost like a Vulcan.
Yeah.
All right, we have a couple of comments I wanted to jump into. Now, Steve, this is a comment that came back when we were talking about the Star Trek shows, and he said, I grew up watching TOS reruns, but unlike later in life with Star Wars, where I wasn't a huge fan of the new material or the prequels, I instantly fell in love with Next Generation.
Yay.
And then in reference to the planets, Wayne threw out a planet that he'd like to visit, Earth. I'd like to go back to Chicago to see if Lake Michigan had dried up. Yeah, Earth would be, I think, interesting. In Star Trek, and specifically I'd like to see more of 32nd century Earth just on the show. But yeah, I mean, Earth is a different place in the Star Trek future than it is today.
Yeah,
I like that there's no cars in the road. People just walk around in the streets all the time.
Yeah,
because
they walk into the transporter and just go boop.
Yeah.
And
then UFO P1701 said, I mean, I know what planet I'm going to to. Risa.
I can't imagine living on Risa, though.
Yeah.
That sounds exhausting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think Risa would be a cool place to visit.
Yes.
It might get, you would probably get Risa out after a while. I think I might, but Risa would be an interesting place though.
Yeah.
It feels like Vegas to me.
Yes.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
Like there's no soul to that place. It just like exists to make people happy.
right.
Yes.
Or like living in Orlando.
Right.
Yes.
You know, I wouldn't want to live in
Are
Orlando.
we hearing Chuck and Veronica?
Are
What?
you hearing
You're
me?
not hearing us?
No, you just started breaking up and you disappeared, but you just came back.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see, you're good now.
So I was saying that it would be like living in Orlando,
Mhm.
where it's just traffic from tourists all the time.
Yeah.
I
And
like
also-
going to Orlando. I do not like driving around in Orlando.
And also, as we saw in Deep Space Nine, it's an odd planet because it's not natively a tropical paradise. It's natively just a rainy planet like Ferenginar, and they have to use weather control. I'm still not sure why they chose it. Maybe where it's located physically, but we saw in that, spoilers to those who haven't seen this, in my opinion, this really horrible episode where Worf turned off the weather control machine. And it turned out it just rains all the time. It's a really miserable place to live.
But okay, so to be fair to Risa, I also feel like if you had been using weather control for so long and then you just turned it off, the complete opposite of whatever you had been controlling it to do would happen, regardless of how it had been before. That's what I feel like would happen if you did weather control, which is why I don't think weather control is a good idea. But that's another topic.
And it also shouldn't revert that quickly. And they turned it off, and like 2 minutes later, the planet had reasserted itself.
Yeah. And I think I had gone all day without thinking about that episode, Keith. So thanks.
I
a
know,
lot.
right?
All right. Elaine Sweatman is in the comments. Welcome, Elaine.
Hey, Elaine.
Elaine from Matt and Elaine Watch TV on Facebook. Everyone should follow. And Elaine says, I'd love for Star Trek to come back to Earth. And then Wayne said, Risa, a really nice version of the Philippines. Okay, I'll take your word for that.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. I've never been to the Philippines.
Yeah, Wayne's a military veteran, so he's probably speaking from firsthand experience there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, who else has got a planet they wanted to throw out there?
So I'd like to visit Ferenginar, especially now, based on what we've seen in Lower Decks, where they're kind of more touristy in certain areas, at least. And females can wear clothing if they want to. So it would be an interesting experience because, I mean, it's not like the Ferengi culture is still very, very much there of what you think of the stereotypical Ferengi culture, but it's also open to whatever because Rom is amazing. So I'd kind of really like to see that, like that blending of women who want to keep with the traditions and not wear clothing and women who are just like, whatever, I'm going to wear clothing and see how the locals would go if any of the local the visiting females would decide, I'm not going to wear clothing because this is what Ferengis do. And so that's what I'm going to do too. I think that'd be hilarious.
Went on Ferenginar. Yeah, the walking around naked thing seems much better if it's optional.
Yeah.
You know, when they weren't allowed to wear clothing, that's not cool. But
No.
now, if you can, if you want to walk around naked and no one cares, well, great. And I thought that was a really good addition that Lower Decks made, was having the just random naked lady Ferengis just sitting around in the background, just having dinner and stuff, and no one cares.
Yeah. They didn't make it front and center or anything, and they didn't make a big deal about it, but it was there.
I will say that if we went to Ferenginar, I would like to stay indoors most of the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I feel like though, if within their at least their touristy area, they might have like a special get around town type of thing where you can put platinum chips in it and
you imagine how expensive
travel
public
around.
transit's going to be on Ferenginar.
Yeah.
That's all you will feel afford to do.
So Veronica, what is it you would want to actually see on Ferenginar? Why would you actually want to go there? I know you like the Ferengi. By the way, she loves Ferengi. But what would you like to see there?
The commercials.
Yes. I want to watch the commercials.
Just gonna watch TV.
I'll just sit in
Ferenginar.
the hotel room like Boimler.
I would visit the monument to lost Dominion war prophets.
Yes.
Ooh.
You gotta pay your respects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd probably like follow basically what the Lower Deckers did. Except for Mariner. I don't think I'd bar hop on Ferenginar. That sounds terrible.
It's another planet when you talk about Ferengi like Vulcan. It would make you wonder what kind of humans could live there. Again, because the culture is so different. You need a certain type of person to live there. Because I think you get irritated. You go to the lawyer, you got to pay somebody. You got to bury somebody. You got to cut them up and sell off their body parts. You get into whatever their health. What was they're having the great what was it? The Great Vault, Great Exchange, the Great whatever. You
Mhm.
got to pay to get into heaven. I mean, my goodness, what a culture.
Yeah, do you remember the Star Trek Next Generation episode, The Neutral Zone, where they,
Yeah.
those 20th century people were in cryo sleep and they woke them up?
Mhm.
And Ralph
Mhm.
Oppenhaus was like the big 80s businessman.
Yeah.
In the novels, he became the ambassador to the Ferengi.
Are you kidding?
Yeah,
That
which
makes total
is
sense.
Yeah.
It
genius.
does.
That you have this like 80s Wall Street guy, and the Federation is sending him to deal with the Ferengi and negotiate with them. I thought that was a brilliant move.
Mhm.
You'd have to, because you'd have to have people who kind of sort of have the same personality as that
Yeah.
planet.
Right. You have to
But
respect their
understand how
culture.
they think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Swindling them back is showing them respect.
Yep. Certain people in the Federation in Lower Decks knew that. Some people did not.
Yeah. Captain Freeman came through on that one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who else has got a planet that'd be interesting to live on or visit?
Andoria.
Andoria.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's one I would just like to see. I'm going to say, just like Veronica said about Ferenginar, definitely a nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there because it's basically a frozen waste.
Yeah.
And then when you go underground, they got those crazy worms that drop out of the ceiling and burn you. That's an Enterprise reference. But I would really like to visit. I forget the name. Is it the Enar? Enar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. They're sister species that are the Andorians who are blind and telepathic, because I like their philosophy. They're actually kind of a gentle people, and they're much more, I guess, for lack of a better thing of saying, they're much more in tune with like nature and the universe and stuff like that. So I would like to visit just to see what produced that race. And I'm always fascinated, like with Ferenginar and even Andoria, I'm always fascinated by a place that looks like that. And you just wonder, like, where did they first discover iron? Where did they build their first spaceport? You know, where did their technology develop if it's basically an ice planet all the time?
That's true. Yeah. Okay. A couple of comments that I wanted to grab real quick. UFOP 1701 says Starfleet Academy might be back on Earth for the 32nd century.
Oh yeah.
That's true.
That's a possibility.
That would make sense.
That would be interesting if they really did that, and it would not be a boldly going show again.
Yeah, but my hope is if they show Earth and spend time there, they don't do what Star Trek Picard, I think, had a bad habit of making it just like present day Earth, but in the future. You know what I mean? And I want it to be more Star Trek-y. I like those scenes like on like when Harry Kim had that. He woke up in the alternate universe back on Earth, and Earth feels different. It's still a backlot, but like there's people out in the street, and there's like monorails and stuff going by, and
you
know, I like that. I want Earth to be a future Earth, especially in the 32nd century. I don't want it to be Blade Runner Earth.
Yeah.
All right. Stephen T. Fowler says Beta Z during wedding season.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
You might regret that.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Be careful what you wish for, Steve.
Yeah.
Wayne, Tiger Blades 2002 says, I think I would have immediately have been banned from Beta Z when they saw what was inside my. That's true, because Steve, that's a good point that Wayne's making. That if you're going to a Beta Z wedding, everyone can hear your thoughts.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Watch
Even
yourself.
the thoughts that you don't know you're thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
They can hear them loud and clear.
Everyone turns on and looks at you. Uh-oh.
What did I just think?
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wouldn't want to be on that planet. I wouldn't want to be on a planet where they can read your thoughts all the time. That's really intrusive.
Right. All right. And Elaine says, I wouldn't pass up a visit to Denobula. And I'm not a big Enterprise guy, so I don't remember the specifics of like what the geography and topography is like on Denobula. But what I do remember about Denobula is that they're very socially open. You know, like Phlox is like, oh, my wife wants to have sex with you. You should give it a try. You know, which I feel like a planet of those folks, I would be a little bit out of my element.
The other thing, one of the key things about Denobula is, do you remember the original, Navya, you wouldn't know this one, the original series episode, The Mark of Gideon. There is an episode, it's that episode where the planet is so incredibly crowded that they literally are trying to introduce a plague to kill off their population.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, seriously.
It reminds me of going to Dragon Con.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about Denobula is it's incredibly crowded. Evidently, it's a huge population where you're never alone and there's people everywhere. And interestingly, there's an episode in Enterprise where there's a young ensign, I forget her name. She's an actress who died later on in life, but she was the one, for those who see in Enterprise, she was kind of sort of developing a relationship with Dr. Phlox. And one time she almost touched him and he pulled away and she said, "Oh, I forgot, you don't like to be touched." So I think it's very interesting that evidently Denobulans don't like to be touched casually, but they love living on a super crowded planet. And then, as Chuck says, their sexual mores are extremely open because almost every Denobulan, I think, has 3 spouses, and every one of their spouses has 3 other spouses.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So that's really interesting because like there's a certain type of I'm blanking on the word, neurodivergent, who just does not like being like casually touched or just lightly touched, but
Yeah.
they like hugs, they like touching, just not like the like touching. and
Yeah.
and it sounds like that's and they typically don't like big crowds either, in the neurodivergent ones.
You're
But
talking about people that are considered on the autistic spectrum?
Yes.
That's
Specifically,
that's very
yes.
common. Yeah.
But it's very interesting. Like, I can't imagine being like that where you don't like being casually touched and being in a crowd of people, because that's like constantly being casually touched. But at the same time, you know that you're going to be casually touched, so maybe it's different in that sense. But yeah,
It sounds like the Nobulans just don't want you to touch them if you don't mean it. You know, like,
unless you don't mean it.
don't start something you can't finish, buddy.
Well, they're almost like stereotypical New Yorkers. They live in a city with millions and millions of people, but they do not, they're not personable by certain people's standards, not for those of us raised in the South. And they kind of sort of don't like small talk. And New Yorkers, please don't think I'm stereotyping the entire city, but it's kind of sort of like that to a certain extent.
Oh, I'm sure they'd admit it too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break for a commercial or two, and then we'll come back. We'll get back into some more Star Trek Planet. So stay right there. We can't show you what happens in the Felt Nerdy and Dirty show, but we can show you the people responsible. Charles Kelso, Veronica Dashel. Felt Nerdy and Dirty. You won't believe your eyes. And we're back. And let's get back into some Star Trek planets. So a planet that keeps coming to my mind is Bajor. Because I think of all the Star Trek planets we've seen, Bajor has the richest history and culture and art of the planets that we've seen. And they've been through a lot of, modern history. But they were a planet who they were, going to space when humans were still like discovering tools. Yeah. And they had this great culture that unfortunately then they went through the occupation. But that seemed to have made them more resilient. I just think Bajor is a fascinating planet. I would love to go to Bajor and, go to the museums and go to the memorials and go to the art exhibits and listen to the music, because we spent more time with Bajorans than we did probably any other Star Trek race. Aside from the ones that are on the main crew, but as far as seeing the planet, I haven't done a count, but I wonder if we've seen Bajor more times than any other Star Trek planet.
I would believe so, with
probably
the possible exception of Vulcan.
Yeah, or just Bajorans coming to, like we saw the festivals and musicians, and there was always Bajoran stuff going on the station as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. And when you say that, Charles, I was thinking about the fact because you're right in Ensign Row when Bajor was kind of sort of introduced they really delved into the concept. You're right. Picard mentioned that they had a flourishing culture when we were almost barely inventing tools and writing. And so, forgive me, that was me. And so that means that I think about, you have digs in Greece and Asia Minor and China, and there's levels of cities beneath cities beneath cities, and Bajor must be like that because it's so incredibly old. And they even had space flight centuries ago because of that weird subspace corridor that connects them to the space right near Cardassia. You know,
Right.
remember when Cisco built that wooden ship, which folks don't try that, built the wooden ship.
No, please don't do that.
All right, we got a couple of comments. Let's get
Cool.
to. Wayne said, sounds like my household. I agree, Veronica, but I missed what that was in reference
That
to.
was probably in reference to when I was talking about the neurodivergent people and being in crowds and
Gotcha.
whatnot.
Okay. UFOP 1701 says, don't put flocks on the London Underground. Then
Well, he'd be okay as long as nobody touched him.
Right. And Wayne commented, mouth still hanging open after the commercial break. LOL.
So those of you listening, go check out the Felt Nerdy and Dirty page, and you can find it.
We played an edited version of the commercial here on the show. But yeah, if you're interested in Dirty Puppet shows, go to the Felt Nerdy and Dirty social medias, and you'll see more than you asked for.
Yes.
Okay. UFOP 1701 says, ooh, what about the planet from DS9 that phased in and out of the universe that you get to be in a pure energy state?
I don't know if I'd want to be in a pure energy.
I know.
That sounds really boring, and I'd be stuck like literally in my head all the time, and that sounds terrible.
Yeah, they pass it off like the kind of philosophical concept of nirvana, where you're just in this kind of bliss state, and it was like everybody was spiritually joined. And it sounds like you don't get bored with the passage of time because you're in a different state. I mean, they were literally blissed out. But I agree with you. I don't think I would handle that. I hate to sound like Kirk, but that doesn't seem like what I'm made for. You know, man must struggle to be more than he is.
Right. Well, I wonder if it would be a little like when changelings link with one another. You know, that he was so into the link and sort of out of space time in his head that he came back and he was like, oh, I got to get to see Major Kira, or say, Kira for that meeting. And it was like, that was 2 days ago. Like, what? But speaking of which, I wonder what it would be like to join the Great Link for a changeling. Because I mean, the way they described it on the show, it was like the drop becomes the river or the lake, and then the river becomes a drop. But which I don't know that means that, that exact changeling like reforms all the molecules, or if like just Odo is part of all changelings now,
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, the changes of that old term, the Gestalt,
right?
Because you're right. They're just one really group mind. There's good and bad to that because they can regenerate each other. Other than that one plague that Section 31 created.
I was like, what?
Yeah,
that's the even more secret one.
Yeah, they seem to be kind of sort of immortal, but that one, Charles, that goes back to culture, and your very psychological makeup is different because changes don't really go anywhere other than when they send their kids out to spy. And the rest of the time, they just kind of sit there in that big lake of goo and control the galaxy.
Yeah,
sounds boring to me, but
I mean, if that's all that you knew.
Yeah. Knock it till you try it, Keith. Well, what do we think that life would be like on something like Talos 4, where they spend all their time underground living out the fantasies of other beings that they've captured? And it seems like sort of just observers to those fantasies.
Well, they wouldn't know any different, right? They would just think they're in that fantasy. So
yeah, well, the specimens do, but
the
keepers though are sort of watching. So I guess from either.
You're talking about keepers' point of view. Okay.
Yeah, or whoever. I mean,
that's almost like us watching TV and movies and stuff, and then in our brains they were also there at the same time, which happens to me, and is why I have to stop watching shows sometimes. But that's what that would seem like to me. Would be like just watching all kinds of different TV shows.
So, Navya, you made a very interesting concept where you said that they don't know. And I was thinking about the Matrix, the first Matrix movie, where the dude who betrayed them, Cypher, I think it was, when he was talking to Mr. Smith, but he told him, I'll let you plug me back into the Matrix, but he did not want to remember that he lived in the Matrix. So if you lived on Talos, would you want them to just wipe your mind so that you don't know you're living in an illusion, or would you want to know that they're giving you an illusion?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I'd want to know.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to know.
Yeah,
I definitely wouldn't want to know.
In the case of the Matrix, there's no option but now you live on terrible Earth being hunted by giant squid robots. At least, if, on Talos 4, presumably you have the option of leaving Talos 4 at some point if you wanted to escape. But yeah, if I was in the Matrix universe, leave me in the Matrix. I'd rather live in the real world than, live in that floating submarine with robot squids chasing me all the time.
Yes, please and thank you.
Yeah.
Talos 4 always scares me for one simple reason. We've seen this a billion times. We've seen it a billion times in Star Trek holodeck episodes. We've seen it in movies like Inception. How do you know that you've actually left Talos 4 once you were there? How do you really know?
I think that would be a great episode of Strange New Worlds if all of a sudden he found out he was still on Talos 4. Maybe it's like a double blind where he's not actually at the end, but it'd be a cool thing to play with. Where he doesn't know if he's actually gone from Talos 4 or not.
Maybe that's going to be the end of Strange New Worlds. No. Hey, this entire thing is actually just him from the entire time after Spock left him there.
Keith would be so relieved those Gorn aren't real.
Yes. I do it.
That would be a way to duck all of the continuity complaints, though.
Yes.
I called it right here, right now.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Write down that day and time.
So what other planets you got?
Cardassia. How about Cardassia? What do you guys think about living on Cardassia?
I would hate to live on Cardassia. Thank you very much.
So I don't know, because you still haven't listened to A Stitch in Time, but you've read it though.
I've read it. I read it when it came out. I had the paperback.
Yeah. Have you listened or read to A Stitch in Time, Keith?
I have not. No.
Have you listened to it, Navya? It's so amazing, and it's a lot different, at least this perspective that we got from Garrick, than what you would expect. It almost seems like normal, and Garrick just kind of got sucked into the spy side of things, which isn't the entire culture. There's a whole lot of other stuff, like his mom was the servant, and his father, which he grew up thinking was his father, but wasn't his actual father, because we know who it's actually her father. Sorry. I mean, you know who his father is before you start Stitch in Time. But he had another, not his father, but his father that was a gardener. So, I mean, like, Cardassia is almost like Earth.
Well, that's the scary part about Cardassia, is that it's almost like Earth.
Yeah.
It depends on where on Earth you are. But, I mean, I think every time we've visited Cardassia, there are Cardassians saying, what are you talking about? This is just the way things are. This is a great place to live. But I don't agree with them, because I would not want to, if I get accused of a crime, I don't want to be guilty and then have a show trial so everybody feels better about me being executed. I would rather have, a real Samuel T. Cogley can come over there and save me or something, I don't want a Cardassian lawyer.
Yeah, I haven't read that, but it always seemed to me there's three different Cardassias depending on when, because before they became the fascistic state that we saw in Deep Space Nine, they were actually a relatively peaceful and sophisticated people. And then they became basically, as we all know, they basically became Nazi Germany during the occupation. And I don't know what happened after the founders killed, what was it, 800 million people or 8 billion or whatever it was. So I don't know what the post DS9 Cardassia is like.
There was a little bit of that in the Stitch in Time as well. But it was kind of just like literally rebuilding from almost nothing at all whatsoever. And they basically weren't mourning their militaristic way of life from the little bit that you got from it, because a lot of it was like Garrick's early life, but they were not looking to go back to the militaristic style. They were looking to move forward and move into another way of living. Yeah,
but I mean, it doesn't take much. I think the whole story behind Cardassia was that it was a resource poor planet, and so that was what they were able to use to sort of get the support of the people. Is that it's the same sort of thing that we see in politics today. Is that well, these people over here are the reason that we're suffering. Why are the Bajorans on this paradise planet and we're struggling to get by? We need to take what they've got, and then so they go over there and strip mine their planet and try to suck it all the resources out, ostensibly to make the people's life better. But anytime you see the people's lives on Cardassia, they don't seem all that great. No. So I don't think that everything trickling down economics isn't working on Cardassia.
No, it's not. Because it doesn't work. Spoiler alert.
All right, let's get into some comments. Wayne has said the Great Link would be a great discussion by itself.
Yeah, it would.
And Jen said Talos 4 again sounds like my household. And UFOP 1701 says, "Can I just live on the spa ship from Lower Decks?"
Yes, please.
Oh,
That'd be
yeah.
amazing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you don't have to like do anything. You just get pampered constantly.
Mm.
That sounds magical. I'll go with that. That's what I want to live.
Maybe-
I want to live on the spa
Maybe
ship.
for like a day. I don't know if I'd want more than the day on that ship.
No, that's fine. As long as I can also like go play on my computer and play video games and read books and watch TV and get massages and just like chill.
It would be like being on a cruise ship. It would get
Yeah.
old. The only cruises we go on are music cruises with
That is true. That's true.
Imagine a week on that cruise with no concert to go to.
Yeah.
Yes, but also in the Star Trek universe, the massages aren't like $300 for 30 minutes. So I would go get a massage because it wouldn't cost more money.
Right.
I would go sit in the spa in the massage, and I would go like just chill in the warm pool with this little rolly massager thing that was really awesome, and I completely missed because I was too busy going to concerts.
Oh. Well, before we got started, Veronica, you mentioned Kronos.
Yeah. I don't remember why.
You would like to go to Kronos.
Why would you want to go there?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It was just the first planet that came to my brain.
Okay.
I would not want to go there. I don't think though. The little bit I've heard and read and seen sounds terrible. Like I don't understand why Klingons want to live there. I feel like they don't live a lot. Well, I don't know because we don't see a lot of Klingons other than the warrior race, and there has to be Klingons other than just the warriors.
There
I
are.
mean, I know that
Yeah.
they're the warrior race, but
Yeah, there's
That's all there
Klingon.
is.
There's got to be Klingon farmers and shepherds and bakers and all that kind of stuff.
that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see the real
They're
world
without honor.
Kronos.
Oh no. have we actually seen the planet, like the outside of buildings and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have-
We've seen they had a map painting on Next Gen that they would always show where it's
Oh,
like
right.
a cityscape on Kronos.
It's the same one, pretty much.
Yeah.
So regardless of what city they're in.
And then on Discovery, we went to Kronos, but it was like the alien district where the Orions were.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've seen little bits of Kronos here and there. A lot of times we'll go and we'll see it'll be like a temple chamber with a bunch of guys in
Yeah,
Star Trek 3
exactly.
costumes.
Yeah.
Navya, are you familiar with the original series episode, This Side of Paradise? That's
No,
the
I don't
one
think so.
that's the one with the spores, the spores that get shot at you from plants. But it's an interesting episode. And here's the thing: I think this would be a planet that, if it really existed, the Federation would have no shortage of people who want to go there.
Mhm.
In the episode, Navya, what happens is there's the planet has radiation that will kill you, but there's a plant on there's spores, these bacteria that are in the entire environment. They get into your system and they protect you from the radiation, but they operate like a drug and they make you really happy and you're really chill. It's like you've been smoking weed all the time, but they heal all your things. They like grow your appendix back.
Wow.
You don't get sick. You probably don't age very much, and you literally are just blissed out. I really highly recommend watching it because it's one of the best Spock episodes ever.
That's the one where he hangs from the tree and smiles,
Well, don't
right?
spoil
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Spoilers.
And not to spoil it, but we won't spoil it for you. But to Kirk, it's like hell because you're happy and there's no struggle.
Mhm.
But in real life, especially in a world like back in the 60s and 70s, when people would do things like go to communes and smoke weed all day long, I think that planet would be crowded with folks
Yeah.
because the spores don't hurt you; they just make you calm all the time.
Yeah. I think if it was a controlled environment,
Yeah.
I could see where maybe you go there because you're not going to want to leave. And so there has to be an agreement when you go that someone's going to yank you out of there in a week. You know, they're not going to let you live there and hang from trees and go skipping through meadows your entire life. You know,
Right.
that at some point somebody's going to yank you out.
I was gonna say, I feel like I would like to live there, but then I wouldn't have to struggle. But then I remembered one of my favorite things to do is write Excel formulas and make things work and function. And it's very frustrating when it's not going the right way. But then when I make it go the right way, it's so rewarding because I went through all that frustration. So
But you know what? I think that's a whole other topic for a show. The thing is, it's not that you lose all ambition. You're not really angry. And so like they still farm, they just don't eat animals because the animals died. So I think you could still do things. Now I don't know if you write like Russian type plays and stuff because you're not miserable anymore. But you could probably do puppet shows and sculpt and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, but what would your puppet shows be about? Like, because it's there's no conflict. Like, what would your plays be about? There's no conflict because you're happy all the time. You wouldn't understand conflict anymore.
This is definitely another time. I think that planet exemplifies the concept of make love, not war. I think that's what that planet's would be like.
Yeah, it was like a hippie commune, but
exactly
Star Trek. Yeah,
exactly.
Their minds were being expanded.
Expanded.
All right, who else has a planet that they had in mind?
Romulus before the incident.
Romulus. Yeah,
I would not want to live there either.
Yeah, a planet I would not want to live on.
No.
You haven't wanted to live on many of these planets, but you like to visit. That's actually cool. I get you.
Yeah.
You don't want to live on a planet where they're spying on you all the time?
Yeah, no thank you. Hard pass.
Yeah. Back when they were making the first season of Picard, Michael Chabon had like detailed notes about his take on life on Romulus and stuff like that
Really?
he's posted on like Instagram or something. But they're interesting to read because I mean he was a novelist, so he's going a lot of stuff that didn't wind up on the screen that he had sort of fleshed out for just story building purposes. But yeah, there's all kind of stuff with like Romulans are just the expectation is that you're being spied on and you have like secret doors to get in and out of your house and all this stuff. They have a secret name, like no one can find out your name because it's a secret.
Really?
Yeah, it's an interesting place.
So Navya, what would you like about it? Or why would you want to visit?
Apparently, the environment is very much like Earth. So it seemed like the most Earth-like planet. So if I wasn't being surveillanced all the time, I would want to visit.
Right. Yeah, they have good ale. I'll say that for the Romulans. Their ale, is famous on Star Trek.
As long as you don't get it like pre-made from Earth.
Right. The
As long
Romulan
as
ale
you
from
actually
Earth.
get it from Romulus.
Right.
Yeah, I think, Charles, you said something earlier about that I think is very interesting. Star Trek, like so much science fiction, is famous for monocultures. And now we have some countries on our planet that are 100% what they are. I'm not going to call out many, but there's certain Middle Eastern countries, for example, that they kind of are what they are. But I think what you were saying earlier about Cardassian stuff, even if Romulus would be kind of a repressive state, that doesn't mean that you couldn't have a good time. Sometimes people can live their whole lives and enjoy it as long as they don't go too far. They don't get into politics. They don't, they run a business, but the business doesn't get too powerful. You may always feel like you're kind of keeping your head down, but it may not be as bad as, it may seem from the outside.
I mean, a good example of that, I have a lot of friends that live outside the U.S. that say that I would never visit the U.S. because of all the gun violence and because of politics and
a terrible example.
And so forth.
Wow.
But I mean,
interesting.
Day to day, there's not people being shot in the street around me. You hear about it, but it's not close by.
Yeah,
that's true.
So I mean, there's probably people on Romulus that hear the Federation saying, "Oh, Romulus is terrible," and they're like, "Oh, you're blowing it out of proportion. Over there, it's terrible, or every now and then." But my day-to-day life is just my day-to-day life. It's what I'm used to.
Yeah.
The other thing about Romulus is it's a resource-rich planet, and the population is very low. So they have like no issues with food or resources or anything. So if you're a farmer in the middle of nowhere, like you're probably fine.
Yeah, you just pay what the state wants, and they leave you alone.
Yeah, hopefully.
You give them the food they ask. Now Remus, not a nice place to live. Remus seems like a mining slave planet. I wouldn't want to visit Remus.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't it dark on that planet? It's like totally locked or something weird, and it's I don't think the sun ever shines. It's got a horrible environment, and radiation or pollution or something. Yeah, that's not a place. That's not even a place to visit, from what I can tell.
Yeah. Someone mentioned Beta Z before, and just circling back to Beta Z real quick. Yeah, even the weddings aside. Everyone in the comments wanted to talk about the weddings, but yeah, just living my life, it would be difficult to get used to people knowing what you're thinking, or pushing their thoughts into your head. We always see it on Star Trek as people like a voice you hear in your head, but I would imagine they can think things into your head, and it's like having a thought that you didn't put there, which I would find very disconcerting.
Yeah. I would think so too. A planet I'd like to visit. was, I don't know if it had a name. What probably did it, because it's fascinating. Is in Voyager there was the planet, spoilers, where Tom Paris got in trouble because it was a giant sphere of water in space.
Yes.
It was an absolute water planet. I think it was artificially maintained, but that would be so cool just to check that out.
Yeah, that was a cool episode. It was like
Mhm.
like a Jules Verne story in Star
Yeah.
Trek, where they're flying around and there was sea monsters and that sort of thing.
Right.
All right, grab some comments real quick. Back when we were talking about Kronos, UFOP 1701 said, "Visit the House of Quark," and then said, "I wouldn't mind taking a look around the Takan Empire."
Oh.
Takan, which one were they?
That was that ancient, like the one that was dead a million years or whatever before Star Trek. So they would find like an ancient Takan ship and that sort of thing.
Ah.
Series.
Next gen.
Ah.
All right. Wayne says, "I wonder if it's because of my military background that I'm rather hesitant to visit the other planets in the Star Trek universe. I don't know." And then he went on to say, "I'd find them rather uncomfortable." Well, a lot of the planets are uncomfortable because there's drama. There's supposed to be drama, and our heroes have to escape from that planet, or there's a problem there. Like most of the planets,
True.
they don't go to boring planets all the time, or they're going to be boring episodes there.
Yeah.
You know, unless it's like the planet of Irish people.
Oh gosh!
Something like
Oh
that.
And
my
there just goes,
goodness!
fine.
Oh, that's the Scottish planet. The Irish one, they came on the Enterprise. The Scottish one is
Up the long ladder.
You can get ghosted on that planet.
Yeah.
that is not what we mean with it. What?
Oh, it's not.
No,
Oh,
that's
okay.
not what ghosting is.
Okay. That's disappointing. But yeah, I mean, just like that planet, though, there's a lot of people who took their culture and sort of took an Earth culture to another planet and kept it going. You know, that Scottish planet,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't Scottish, but it had a very Scottish feel. It seemed like that culture got transported there. Which might be interesting, to see some cultures from Earth in isolation or exaggerated versions of them, because they sort of been pulled out, and people who are, it's like enthusiasts for that culture. It's like going to the Ren Fest is not like going into the Renaissance. It's a bunch of people who are fanning being in the Renaissance. I imagine there's probably Star Trek planets. Well, like the Iosians, or that one on Prodigy, where they were emulating Earth cultures. But there's probably the same sort of thing. Sort of like the culture that the engineer with the mustache, whose name I just blanked on, in Lower Decks came from. His planet seems
The
like,
evil.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like his planet is like a Renfest planet.
Yeah.
That
Now,
would be really interesting.
The comment about the Takan Empire is very fascinating, because now that I think about dead civilizations, I would like to visit wherever the seat of power was for either the old ones, the ones who created the androids in the original series,
right,
and the creators of the Guardian of Forever, which some people say might be the same. We just don't know. There's so many ancient races. I would like to see them. I would love to see the Guardians creators at the height of their power.
Right.
What they would have been like. I don't know what they were like. Nobody knows.
Me either.
Yeah.
Yep. UFOP 1701 says Fairhaven.
Oh, goodness.
And then Wayne said, "Well, I'd like to find out what that washing feet thing was all about on the Irish planet."
Wayne, please don't mention that Irish planet again.
Well, the implication to me was that they started with the feet. So, I think it got more involved after that.
Now, a place I'd like to, like Navya, I'd like to visit, but I couldn't stay there for just for a minute. It's not really a planet, but I have a huge thing for the Voth in Voyager, the dinosaurs. I would love to see that freaking city ship, but I don't know if I could get close to it because they're not very nice people.
They're not very friendly.
No, they're really not.
Yeah, that's another. I've said this before, but that's a planet or a culture that I would love to see something like Prodigy tackle.
Yeah,
where they could go all in on the dinosaur thing, and they could have like riding triceratopses or whatever. Like you could have livestock they brought from Earth and evolved, and all kind of crazy things.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're about 5 minutes out. Did anyone have any last planets they wanted to throw in there?
One
of the things I was thinking of was the Illyrians and how they like.
Are you saying Elorians or Illyrians?
The ones from Strange New Worlds.
Illyrians, go ahead.
Illyrians, yeah. And what was their? Does anyone remember what their original city was like, or they just had to leave their own world because I mean they basically like instead of terraforming to fit themselves, they changed themselves to fit whatever the planet is that they go to. I find that pretty fascinating.
Yeah, that's a cool, interesting culture. Yeah, the planet they're living on, the ones that we saw, the colony that we saw.
Yeah.
That's not a place I'd like to visit.
No,
I
wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to
time.
live on. I wouldn't want
Right.
to really visit any of their planets. I
No.
understand why the Federation doesn't want to live on any of their planets.
Right.
But like, it'd be interesting to find out what like their original planet was like prior to the reason they had to leave and go
That would be interesting.
terraform themselves.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, yeah, we've talked about every planet on Star Trek now, so I think we've got it about covered.
Pretty much.
Well, Navya, thank you very much
Yeah.
for joining us on the
Thank you
show.
for having me.
And
And
great
for the
topic.
idea.
Yeah, and for the topic. This has been great. So now where can people find more of you?
I'm on TikTok and Instagram, and my handle is that girl Avon.
And how do you spell that girl Avon?
Well,
the Avon part.
Oh, AYVAN.
Right.
I'm gonna spell my own name.
THAT.
It's like a spelling bee.
All right, Keith, how do you spell it? All right, Keith, where can people find more of you?
You can find me on X, Instagram, and Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And how about us, Veronica?
Feltnerdy.com, which is a website now.
Which is a website
Yay!
now. Yep. And if you're in the Atlanta area, you already know this because we're spamming your feeds about it. But we have a show coming up on February the 25th at the Red Light Cafe, the Felt Nerdy and Dirty Show. So if you're interested in a dirty puppetry, burlesque, very adult, sort of rowdy show, it's going to be a fun night out. So check it out check us out on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, or Veronica's on TikTok. But you can also follow it if you just like family-friendly puppet shows. Felt Nerdy, or Felt Nerdy on Facebook is where you can find us there, or on YouTube.
We have some YouTube videos.
And where else can people find us?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
Yep. And where can people find you specifically, Veronica?
Dabo Woman 8. That is my handle on TikTok. That is my handle for my adult content on Facebook. And I have an Instagram. I don't know that I've ever actually used it for Instagramming, other than like stalking Star Trek people and watching their content. When I'm on there, I might have something on there that I don't remember. I don't know. You can find me. I'm there, supposedly.
The way you said TikTok, it almost sounds like a Klingon word. TikTok.
You TikTok.
Yeah.
A Klingon insult.
Yeah.
It probably is.
You know what? We got like 2 minutes left. So I want to say this. We were watching the What We Left Behind documentary the other day, and they had the clip from Worf when he's accusing Ezri of, because he's jealous of Captain Boudet, and he just says, Slivak. And I was like, that's a really good Klingon insult, because in context, you can tell exactly what he's saying to her, because they don't have to explain what it means or anything.
Yeah.
Like, you'd rather be having dinner with Captain Boudet, you Slivak. And she's like, how dare you? That's a really good, I thought that was a really good Klingon, not a good Klingon word to say, but as Klingon words go, someone did a good job coming up with that one.
Yeah, and it sounded natural, because sometimes when Michael Dorn would do it, he would pronounce the word almost too formally, like it wasn't natural, and then he would tell you what it meant in English. So, yeah.
Right.
I mean, he's not a natural Klingon either, so,
Well, good point.
All right, Veronica, do you have a closing for us this week?
I had one in my head, but I'm going to say it anyway. Slivak!
If you go to Kronos, don't be a Slivak.
No.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining
Thanks,
us.
all.
Yeah, if you're just joining us for the first time, we go live on Thursday evenings talking about the latest Star Trek episode, which will resume April 4th, or a legacy Star Trek topic, or just a general Star Trek topic. But Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, you can find us on YouTube. You can find our Facebook group. We have other social medias that we've sort of let atrophy because we're not great at social media. But we also have an audio podcast. If videos aren't your thing, you can listen to us on the search out Earth Station Trek on your favorite podcast platform. And we will see you next time.
Take care.